have a bit something different today. This is something new for me. I've done a few book reviews up to now, but now I thought I'd try a little change and have a little conversation with my good friend George here, who is a great guy. I've known nearly about since 2007, I think.
Yeah. I would say back in 2004 or 5.
That early?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so quite a while.
Yeah.
And you mentioned online recently a few books, and I thought, what better way to get a conversation going than telling us about a book that you recently enjoyed? So
Sure. So
actually, before we go into that, why don't we tell people how would you describe who you are and what you do?
Wow. Okay. I say wow because who I am is a big question. We can go into the rabbit hole of philosophy there, what I do for my career, my work is I'm a business coach, marketing consultant. So my clients are typically small businesses, solopreneurs, in fact, service providers who maybe they have a message they want to get out into the world and earn a living from helping others transform in a certain way, or helping companies transform. And so I coach and consult them in regards to their online marketing and their business, but doing it from a more values-based perspective, higher values like authenticity and honesty and generosity, caring. So I bring those values into business as much as I can.
Yeah, George has a great channel. I'll link to it at the end of this, and I really strongly encourage you to check it out. It's great stuff. And his cat is messing with the tripod. I wonder if we should evict the cat. All right, so the cat has been evicted, and so George, you have a book. Is this a recent book?
It is actually. I think it was published in 2016.
Okay.
Yeah, 2016.
Fresh on.
And I love getting books from the library whenever I can. So you'll see the library thing here. But this is called The Power Paradox. The Power Paradox: How We Gain and Lose Influence by Dacher Keltner. And Dacher Keltner, interesting guy. He is one of the leaders leading social scientists at UC Berkeley. Their organization is called the Greater Good Science Institute, I believe. But it's all about research. They're all about researching how empathy and caring and generosity, the kinds of values that I like implementing in my business. They research how those values make society more effective, make leadership more efficient or effective, and how the opposite of those values breaks down society and organizations and makes people more anxious or stressed out, etc. So it's a pretty cool organization, and I think they've been around at least 10 years, but you should check out their website as well. I'm sure you can link to that.
Okay.
They have lots of articles and great resources there. But this book is one of, I guess, his latest book, and I guess, do you want to just kind of go into it, or do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, what is it that you liked about it?
What I liked about it is that this is a very, you typically, when we look at books about power or leadership, okay, this book's about power, how do you gain and lose influence, right? It's typically very Machiavellian. Machiavellian meaning Machiavelli was a philosopher. I forget when, it was like 1600s maybe.
Yeah, The Prince.
He wrote the book The Prince, and that book has influenced thoughts and philosophies about leadership for hundreds of years. And I'm going to summarize that book in one nutshell, which is however you gain power, the means is justified by the ends. So whatever you need to do to gain power, do it. So whether it's deceit, manipulation, threats,
right.
And that's what Machiavelli was. That's what the book was known for. And so this is sort of the opposite end of the spectrum to that. And what I love about it is that this comes from social science research, that instead of gaining power through coercive or deceitful, manipulative means, he has discovered that enduring power, power that lasts. 'Cause yes, in the short term, you can game the system. In the short term, you can threaten someone and get your way, right? But in the long term, people will vote you out. In the long term, people will rise up against a bad leader,
Right.
you know. And in the long term, groups tend to give esteem and power and influence to the person who is shown to be all about the greater good, the good of the group, instead of the good of himself or herself. And so there's this wonderful page which I can show you. Maybe you can give a snapshot of that.
I bet I can find that online.
Yeah, I actually took a picture of it, so you can you can use that image.
Yeah.
But it has 20 principles for enduring power, or for gaining enduring power. And I'm not going to read all 20 here, but I'll just quickly summarize that. Groups punish those who undermine the greater good. Okay, enduring power comes from empathy, from giving, from expressing gratitude, from telling stories that unite, and so again, groups give power to those who advance the greater good, and so that's and then the rest of the book basically goes into the social science research that proves that. But what the main thing, and I should say there's a flip side to it. Part of the 20 principles also talks about how once you gain influence and power, you start having certain neurological deficits, interestingly. People with power have something changes in the brain as you gain power, that you start to have a deficit of empathy, and they call it diminished moral sentiments.
Really?
Yes, so the more power you gain, the more tendency you have to care about yourself versus other people. So, and also power leads to self-serving impulsivity, power leads to incivility and disrespect, power leads to narratives of exceptionalism. I am so great.
Yeah.
I alone can make this organization work.
Right.
You know, Donald Trump is famously, right? And we're in election year, and he famously just said, "I alone can fix America." You know, that's an example of narratives of exceptionalism.
So does this author does he define two different kinds of power as, like, you talk about the newer kind of model of power? Is that not really power then, or is it?
Yeah, it's
something else.
So what he no, that's a great question. So from what I got from the book, you gain power by being good to others and uniting others with stories and doing things that allow others to see that you're doing it for the greater good.
Yeah.
Okay. So as you gain more power, the brain starts to shift towards self-serving impulsivity and all about me.
So is there a way to avoid that, though? I guess.
Yeah. So the way to avoid that is to understand that that's what's happening,
right,
and that it's not some kind of, it's not nature. Oh, what I should say, it is the nature of the brain to shift in that way as we gain influence, but it's not someone's eternal flaw. If once you understand what happens, you can start to look for it. And so basically his prescription is...
Read his book.
Well, yes. His prescription is read the book. But he does have a really nice sort of epilogue. And let me give you some prescriptions for, as you gain power, how do you not become a douchebag? Technical term. not used by the book. But number one is to be aware of your feelings of power. And that's interesting. So he's saying that as you gain, that's another important point he says, is that the experience of power happens every day. In every conversation, in every relationship, there's a power dynamic there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In this conversation, there's some kind of power dynamic here. So he says, be aware, be mindful when you feel powerful. And what is power? We should even define that. The book a nice way. It defines power as shifting another person's state of being.
I've heard something similar with like leadership being defined as influence. It sounds
Yeah,
like a very
right.
similar concept.
Yeah, so exactly. So power, yeah, basically you could say that from this book's point of view, power equals influence equals leadership.
Right.
So power is any time you are influencing somebody else's state of being meaning their emotions, so you're exciting them, you're depressing them, you're making them anxious, you're making them happy, you're making them feel grateful, or when you're changing their beliefs, that's also power. So you change someone's mind, or you ask them a question that gets them to start reflecting and therefore changing their own state.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's all power, right? So he says, number one, we all need to be more mindful of what it's like to feel power. So it's not just, power isn't just, oh, I got promoted, or I have this title in my work, or I'm the leader of this group. That's very crude types of, very obvious types of power. But
right.
He's asking us to look beneath the surface at a more subtle ways how power is experienced every day in every conversation. So that's one. And the second prescription is to practice humility. So that's the old story of Icarus, right? The Icarus story, meaning Icarus builds wings to fly, right. And he gets so excited about flying and feels so powerful that he gets higher and higher and higher, and then the power of the sun melts the wax on his wings and he falls, right? And that's what happens to a lot of leaders.
Yeah.
Because they get into these moral deficits with the gain of power. They don't realize that's what's happening. They're not mindful of what's happening. And so they lose their humility. Right. And when they lose their humility, they become selfish and, impulsive and all that. And they don't listen to the feedback of others. So how do we practice humility? He says we practice humility by not losing our willingness to criticize our own work. To say, how could I have done that last talk better? How could I have done this last piece of writing better? Not that we should always be down on ourselves. We should have a healthy sense of, I did really well here, and here I could definitely improve. And here's the other thing. Humility is also practiced when we're willing to be open to the pushback we're getting from others. And this is hard. Yeah. Because human beings are tribal creatures. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we subconsciously hate to be ostracized from the tribe. Mm. So we always are trying to do things to make people like us. Right. And as you get more powerful, you tend to only pay attention to the feedback that says you're great. And because you're powerful, you have the luxury to disregard the feedback that criticizes you. Yeah. Right? And I mean, for example, dictators, they even, imprison or kill political, criticism, right? Critics. So the practice of humility is to be aware that that's the tendency and to say, oh, wait, I'm feeling criticized here. Instead of lashing out, or instead of being depressed, or instead of ignoring it, say, okay, let me take a pause and know that there are many things that are good about what I do, but this person is bringing something out that I could probably grow from, probably. Now, if it's only one person, now that's, but if it's more than one person, we definitely need to be listening, right? Yeah. And then the final, I guess I'll just say through the third one, which is to stay focused on others and giving and respecting and giving gratitude. If we practice, basically positive psychology and empathy, gratitude, appreciation in our relationships with others, and we focus our power on how do I help other people and the greater good. Mm-hmm. If you stay focused on that, practice humility and stay focused on that, chances are much greater that you will keep your power and perhaps even grow it.
Yeah.
So
As you were talking about those, I think the person I thought of most was the Dalai Lama, because
yes,
he's so humble and
Yes.
so he's like the opposite of Donald Trump in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to just like think I'm just getting down on Donald Trump too. I think Hillary Clinton too is subject to a lot of the same things,
sure,
definitely.
sure.
So
she's a human being.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of bummed that Bernie Sanders didn't get the
Yeah.
nomination too. I mean, because I felt he's a very humble guy in a lot of ways.
Yes, he is.
That Hillary Clinton isn't. I mean, I'm gonna probably vote for Hillary Clinton, but
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
Well, we're in California, so we're even if we vote for Jill Stein, Hillary is still going to win.
Enough, yeah. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying though about humility and so like, what is the biggest change? Did this mainly just confirm your ideas, or did it change something about your own life and your own practices?
Yeah. Well, I have seen. So I do marketing for a living,
Mm-hmm.
and social media,
Right.
and I think social media is such a great example of this kind of thing.
Right.
When people on social media give praise to others, acknowledge others, when they tell stories that unite, when they share ideas that help the world, benefit the world,
Mm-hmm.
that stuff tends to get shared forward. Of course, other negative stuff tends to get shared forward too, but this stuff, like world benefiting things, tend to get shared forward a lot. And so I have noticed this in my life even before I encountered this research.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, the books have, even though I already kind of knew this intuitively, seeing this makes me focus on those kinds of areas even more. And if ever I had doubt that, gosh, look at so and so seems to be gaining influence, even though I know he doesn't really care about people, I know that, okay, so he's going to get to a place where the kinds of moral deficits start to happen. And so what I learned from, one of the key lessons I learned from this is that to look at power think of the long term. Instead of looking at, this year so and so is doing so well and how come I'm not doing as well, to look at the long term. No, I'm really looking at this at gaining influence, helping others as a lifetime kind of project.
Yeah.
It's not just how did I do this month, how are my metrics, and are enough people liking my social media posts, or are enough people sharing my stuff forward this month. No, look at it with a much longer view.
Yeah. That's great.
So.
Awesome. Is there anything you didn't like about the book, or things that you would improve or change?
Yeah, I think that the book, this is sort of my complaint about most books, most nonfiction books, is that there's not enough summaries or bullet points that makes it easy for me to go, okay, where was that idea again? And so it was a lot of I shouldn't say, they do have little boxes that that summarize the principles, but I wish there was more application of how do we lose and gain influence, because the application of the book really, they talk about the fivefold path of power is the epilogue, and it's only 3-4 pages or 6 pages, so you kind of have to, and I will be writing a book at some point. I would want to spend like at least a third of my book on application and not just the research or the stories. And I would want to make it much more easy to kind of take away. And one thing I did like is there's this 2-page thing that is very nice to be able to take a snapshot of it. And I wish there were more of those. So
maybe he's printing posters of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But you wanted more like practical reader to act on.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So who do you recommend this book to?
I would say anybody who is a manager in a company or organization. I would say I was gonna say parent, but I would say that this kind of work is really more about leading adults and not so much children. I think that's a different genre. But If you are a team leader, manager, or if you aspire to be, right? If you want to rise to power or gain influence, you should definitely. I mean, sometimes some people call me a leader. I would say I'm more of a coach because I have clients that I work with. But even so, I think this book is helpful for me. So as long as you are leading and influencing people or wish to, I think this book is helpful.
I'll call you a leader.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about the book? Or?
No, I think I would encourage people to go check out, again, the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. They have a great website with lots of helpful resources about beneficent leadership. Yeah.
Efficient leadership.
Something like that.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely link to that in the information below the video. And yeah, that's awesome. I will definitely check out the book. Hopefully, it seems more like an audiobook for me. I tend to like this kind of stuff in audiobook format. Yeah. So I'm hoping there's an audiobook. I'll see if there is. Yeah. Great. Well, thank you very much, George. And if you ever have another book you want to share, I'd love to have you on again.
Cool. Thanks.
Thank you very much.